Historians often whisper this truth. Being a medieval farmer wasn't just hard, it was relentless. Forget the cozy village scenes from storybooks. The real life behind those fields was raw, fragile, and tied to forces no one could tame. Before we begin, take a moment to like the video, subscribe if you haven't yet, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it? Now, settle in. Adjust your pillows. Pull your blanket a little tighter. Maybe dim the light just enough to soften the edges of the day. Because the world we're stepping into smells of damp earth, echoes with the quiet hum of constant work, and beats to a rhythm that shapes every breath and every step. Let's walk slowly now, through fields heavy with history, and step gently into the worn boots of a medieval farmer. The day begins long before the sky brightens. In a small timber-framed cottage on the edge of a medieval hamlet, a farmer stirs from sleep, not because he wishes to, but because the rhythm of life allows no delay. The fire has long since gone out. A rough woolen blanket slides off his shoulders as he rises slowly, careful not to disturb the children sleeping nearby. The stars are fading, but the sun has not yet breached the hills. A soft mist clings to the ground, weaving between fence posts and hayricks, curling gently against the base of hedgerows. From a nearby coop, a hen clucks softly. The door creaks open, revealing the low horizon of the fields, his world, his burden, and his sustenance. Smoke from another cottage drifts upward. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then falls silent. The smell of damp earth rises with each step. Hours are felt, not watched. The body becomes the clock. Hunger reminds him when it is midday. The dark tells him when to rest. Muscles are sore. This is survival, and it begins in the dark. And yet, there is no question of stopping. It is rich, familiar, and always present. In the distance, a rooster may crow, but it's not the sound that summons the farmer. It is obligation. The water from the village well may be clean, or it may not. Food is eaten from wooden bowls, rinsed clean with cold water and rubbed dry with cloth. A crust of bread may serve as a plate. The table, if there is one, is narrow and bare. Conversation is minimal. Morning is not for lingering. So ale, cloudy and faintly sour, becomes the drink of daily life. A poor harvest or a spoiled store can shift the village into quiet desperation. The body learns to endure. He eats what is available, when it is available, and wastes nothing. Even crumbs are gathered for chickens or dried and used to thicken stew. Stomachs shrink. The sun has risen, and the land is calling. Children go to bed early, and the old, as they often do, find dignity in making do. A quiet moment of stillness before the body returns to motion. The crackle of the hearth, the soft clatter of a bowl on wood, the faint smell of onions, smoke, and yeast. Even children sip it, more for nourishment than for taste. Wheat, prized for its softness and pale color, is too costly for most villagers. The dough is mixed with whatever is available, sometimes ground peas or beans to stretch the flour, sometimes bran from the miller's sweepings. It's baked in communal ovens when wood can be spared, and eaten slowly throughout the week. The root cellar offers wrinkled turnips and onions, stored in straw and cool earth. In spring, there is foraged greenery nettles, sorrel, and wild garlic to break the monotony. Summer brings berries, and autumn, if the harvest has gone well, offers apples or oats. As it stales, it grows tougher, but never goes to waste. Pale gold spills over furrows and thatch, catching the morning mist in a soft glow. He does not stop to listen to the birds, though their song is the only music he will hear today. Just what the land provides, and what the season allows. A meal shaped by soil, stored in smoke, and served in silence. There is work ahead, and the day has only just begun. There is always more to do, fields to tend, animals to check, tools to carry. The bowl is set aside, the bread wrapped in cloth, and the door creaks open once more. This is a thick stew of whatever's left in the pot from the night before, perhaps cabbage, onions, and a few grains simmered in water over the hearth. If luck or livestock allows, a small bit of fat or milk is stirred in for richness. Meat is rare, reserved for feast days or borrowed from the Lord's hunting rites. Most mornings, the flavor is mild, earthy, and quietly sustaining. The room is shared by all wife, children, and sometimes even a chicken or two huddled close for warmth. Privacy is a word not yet common, and comfort, in the modern sense, is not expected. The air is damp and still, carrying the faint scent of smoke. The farmer has already completed his first round of chores. Now, briefly, there is time for food. No warm eggs sizzling in a pan. The farmer's morning meal is humble, familiar, and largely unchanged from season to season. It begins with bread dense, dark, and often days old, wool, and the earth floor beneath the straw-stuffed mattress. His hands are rinsed with cold water from a bucket. A coarse tunic is pulled over tired shoulders. Leather boots, worn and cracked from seasons of toil, are laced without thought. They do not keep out the dew. There is no bell, no alarm, only the knowledge that the work begins soon, and that time, once lost, will not be found again. His bones ache in the quiet. Outside, the world is still a shade of blue-gray. Perhaps animals to feed, a fence to mend, or tools to ready. In spring, the sowing must begin before the sun dries the soil. In summer, the reaping cannot wait. And in winter, there is wood to split and livestock to tend, even when frost bites at the fingers. There is no morning routine, as we might know it. No warm shower or coffee cup. This is not a time for thought, but for motion. In the half-light, he steps outside. Even before breakfast, there is work to be done. There is no such thing as a lazy morning. Time moves differently in this life. And yet, for all its demands, this life carries a kind of rhythm, steady, quiet, and deeply rooted in the land itself. The farmer does not pause to admire the sunrise, though it is beautiful. For the modern visitor soft-handed and still half asleep, this moment might feel peaceful, even quaint. But under its calm surface lies the weight of necessity. Sleep was brief. This is not leisure. By the time the first light filters through the cottage shutters, but breakfast in a medieval village is not the hearty, varied affair it would one day become. There are no platters, no fresh fruit. This bread, made from rye or barley, is coarse and slightly sour. Beside the bread, there may be a ladle of pottage. Drink is ale weak, barely fermented, brewed more for safety than pleasure. There are no utensils beyond a spoon or a shared knife. Bread is torn by hand. There is little ceremony to the meal, but it is meaningful in its own way. In winter, food is more sparse. Hunger is never far, and meals are never guaranteed. The farmer doesn't count calories. He doesn't expect variety. Food is fuel, and fuel is precious. There is a kind of honesty in it. Nothing artificial, nothing extravagant. As the last bite is taken, the day resumes. Breakfast is over. Once the morning meal has been taken, there is no lingering, no idleness. The land waits, and it waits for no one. The tools are simple wood, iron, and rope. A heavy plow rests near the edge of the field, its handle worn smooth by years of calloused hands. The sound is steady wood creaking, leather straps shifting, iron biting into clay. Each step forward is earned. There is no speed, only rhythm. The field stretches ahead, and the morning light casts long shadows behind. If the farmer is fortunate, he has a pair of oxen to pull it. It requires judgment. The soil must be turned at the right depth. Stones are lifted and tossed aside. Roots are pulled and set in a pile. Shoulders are sore. Hands, already rough, are rubbed raw in fresh places. The work continues all the same stones unearthed and moved aside, the same cycle always returning. This repetition offers something more than monotony. It brings a quiet certainty. Every patch must be tilled by hand, guided by instinct. His wife might be tending to the garden or spinning wool near the doorway. Everyone has their part to play. The household is a small economy of hands and hours. A misplaced furrow can cost a week's food. A storm at the wrong time can ruin it all. The stakes are not abstract. They are lived. A slow assurance that what is sown might one day be reaped. Too shallow, and seeds will not root. Too deep, and they will never reach the sun. The farmer knows this, not through books, but through years of practice. His education is written in furrows and failure. With a flat blade on one end and a curved adze on the other, it broke through tangled roots and compacted ground. It was a tool of force, swung with care, yet always with effort. Used for cutting herbs, trimming stalks, and shaping bundles, it demanded precision more than strength. The wooden pitchfork for turning hay, the rake for smoothing soil, the hammer for fence posts and cottage repairs. Each served more than one purpose. Repairs were made with care, not because of craft pride, but out of necessity. To break a tool meant falling behind. Falling behind meant hunger. It was that simple. Tools were not specialized. They were versatile. Not through lessons, but through watching, imitating, repeating. A boy might learn to rake before he could read. A girl might learn to draw water or card wool before she knew how to write her name. Simplicity bred utility. A notch in a handle, a patch of rust on iron, a groove where a thumb always pressed. Each one whispered the history of those who held it. Stones, rubbed slow against metal, helped keep the edges biting. Sparks were rare. Everything was done with patience. They will not rest for long. The land will call again tomorrow, and the farmer, tired but steady, will answer. Time, in a medieval village, moved with the hands, not the clock. The scythe, its longer cousin, was heavier and used for mowing grass, grain, weeds. Its blade, sharpened each morning with a whetstone, sliced in wide arcs. A practiced motion, repeated dozens of times until muscle memory did most of the work. The handle bore the marks of years' faint ridges worn smooth, where fingers had gripped it through seasons of planting and pulling. What was once a flat patch of grass is now patterned with narrow ridges, ready to host new life. For threshing, striking sheaves of grain to release the seeds from the husks. The rhythm of threshing filled barns through winter, its slow percussion echoing through the cold. The farmer leans against the plow for a moment, not in triumph, just to breathe. There is always more to turn, more to sow, more to tend. But for now, the furrows lie in stillness, cradling the hope of a future harvest. The sun, now low, casts a golden hue over the land. They allowed one man to till, sow, cut, build, and carry. They were not meant to save effort. They were meant to endure it. Dust floats gently in the air, catching the light like fine ash. If not, he may rely on a neighbor's help or his own strength. The oxen are unyoked, brushed down, and led to water. A strip of iron formed the blade, fixed into place with hammered nails or hand-twisted wire. The iron was costly, often handed down from father to son, repaired again and again. It didn't gleam. It didn't need to. Its edge mattered only to the soil. The day's labor ends not with applause, but with quiet satisfaction. The oxen move slowly, their breath steaming in the morning air, hooves pressing deep into the damp ground. So begins the task of breaking earth. The plow carves a furrow through the field, parting soil that is thick and heavy after a night's dew. There are no gloves, no padding, no relief. The sun climbs higher, not because he expected perfection, but because he could not afford failure. A cracked handle or dull blade could mean lost hours or even injury. There was no nearby store, no easy replacement. Every tool carried with it a quiet urgency, warming the back of his neck, drawing moisture from the soil and sweat from his brow. Tilling is not just about effort. The land is both partner and adversary. Some days it yields with ease. Other days it resists. If the rains have been too strong, the ground is thick and reluctant. If too dry, it breaks into dust. Either way, the plow must pass. Rows must be carved before sowing begins. A small pouch of seeds hangs at the farmer's side rye, barley, or oats. As each furrow opens, he steps behind, casting the grain with a measured sweep, not too dense, not too sparse. The wind may carry some away. Birds may steal what they can, but most will take root if the soil accepts them. By midday, his back aches. There are no breaks apart from a sip of ale or a bite of yesterday's bread. Yet despite the labor, there is a certain peace to the work. The same fields year after year. The field is not large, but it feels endless. Children may be nearby, chasing chickens or gathering stray kindling. By the time the shadows lengthen again, the soil has changed. The tools are carried back to their place. This is the kind of work that never truly finishes. And the farmer turns home as the sky begins to fade. In the medieval countryside, tools were not just objects, they were extensions of the hand, and sometimes of the will itself. Each morning, before the fieldwork began, the farmer would check his implements. The plow, of course, stood tallest among them. Its frame was made of wood, often oak, sturdy and slow to rot. Next to it, the mattock, kind of hybrid between axe and hoe. There was also the flail, two lengths of wood joined by leather or chain. Used not in the fields, but after harvest, the sickle, small and curved, rested lightly by the waist. And then there were the everyday tools, the knife at the belt, leather straps bound handles, iron loops held joints. For those used to modern convenience, the tools may seem crude, heavy, worn, and inefficient. But in their time, they were essential. Even sharpening was a daily ritual. Children, when old enough to carry weight, were taught how to use these tools. These tools, shaped by hand and soil, told stories. Not through words, but through wear. By sunset, the tools are returned to the shed or leaned against the side of the house. Dusty, splintered, still warm from use. In the life of a medieval farmer, there are no clocks on the wall, no calendars with crisp pages. Time is not kept by devices. It is read in the soil, the sky, the feel of wind on the back of the neck. The passing of days is marked not in hours, but in cycles, slow, constant, and inescapable. The rains are needed, but too much will drown the young roots. The sun must come, but not too fiercely. The farmer waits, watching each day for signs. A sprout here, a stem there, not celebration, only relief. The year begins not in January, but in the earliest stirrings of spring. A change in the bird song. This is not a festival, though one may follow. Two could mean hunger. Still, the village does what it can. Neighbors share, barter, help where possible. Life remains communal, even when the cold sets in. First, it is labor. The fields rest beneath a blanket of frost or snow. The animals huddle for warmth. The people stay close to the hearth. Old songs, tales passed down, told in hushed tones by firelight. Time moves slower. The night stretches, and beneath it all, the land sleeps. Days are shorter, and light feels borrowed. But work continues, mending tools, spinning wool, grinding what grain remains. Children learn by watching, by doing. The cycle is beginning again. By sitting quietly beside their elders and absorbing the rhythm of life through repetition. The grain must be cut by hand, bundled and threshed. Root vegetables pulled from the dirt. Fruits picked before the frost. What meat was salted is taken in slivers. boiled into thin soups. Ale, once brewed freely after harvest, is rationed and slowly turns sour. Cold settles into the bones and does not leave. There is a word for this season in many old languages, one that speaks not of winter as beauty, but of its lack. The hunger gap. What milk there is, if any, comes from animals just barely sustaining their own young. Work never stops entirely. It is necessity. Families grow used to doing without, to waiting, to enduring. Not enough to fill, but enough to remind. Not much, but something fresh. It fades gradually as the earth wakes up again. One warm day, then another. Longer light, looser soil. A sign that the worst is passing. Checks the oxen, runs his hands through what remains in the grain sack. The lean season has taken its toll, as it always does. But the work of renewal begins all the same. These are small comfort scents that linger longer than the food itself. Without ceremony. The hunger recedes. The cycle turns once more. There are nets to mend, baskets to weave, tools to sharpen. A rhythm. This lean season has come before. It will come again. But it does not last forever. Some farmers trade small stores of food for services, mending clothes, repairing fences, carving simple items from wood. Snow receding from the edges of the roof. A bird's call that hasn't been heard in months. It is a kind of quiet economy, shaped not by coins, but by need. Everything gathered, dried, salted, or stored away. Their games become slower. Their energy dims. The farmer and his wife say little about it. It is not new. It is not rare. It simply is. Each day is a race against shortening light and falling temperatures. He does not speak of weekends or holidays as we do. His world turns with the earth, in long arcs and quiet loops. He plants when it's time. He harvests when he must. And he endures everything in between. Coughs echo through the cottage. The fire burns low, and there's not always enough wood to keep it going through the night. Some are marked by the absence of food, of certainty, of warmth. A softness in the air after months of cold. The first shoots of green, pressing through thawed ground. The space between what has been gathered and what can be grown again is long. And always the hunger waits. It does not arrive all at once. It comes slowly, in quiet reductions. A smaller loaf, thinner broth, fewer scraps left after the evening meal. It is not warmth exactly, but a promise of it. With it comes preparation, clearing fields, mending fences, grains kept in sacks, roots nestled in straw, dried beans strung together and hung from low rafters. They are carefully measured, not just by weight, but by time. Will they last until the green returns? Hay cut and dried beneath an often uncertain sky. The sun is high and heavy. Shade is rare. The skin browns, not from leisure, but from exposure. Time becomes light. How much of it is left before the sun sinks behind the trees? And praying the stored grain lasts until the first edible leaves appear. Spring is the season of sowing. Seed is cast into the earth with care, each handful a small hope buried in the dirt. Then comes summer. Long days, early starts, and relentless labor. Crops must be weeded, animals tended. Summer is also the season of pests. Insects in the grain, blight on the leaves, rabbits in the garden, each one a quiet threat to survival. And yet, amidst the anxiety, there is beauty. Meadows thick with wildflowers, bees buzzing among herbs, children chasing shadows in golden fields. These small moments soften the strain. Autumn arrives with a different rhythm. The light turns amber, the air cools, and the harvest begins. There is satisfaction in full cellars and hanging herbs. A kind of security, though always fragile. One failed harvest could mean hardship. Winter is stillness. There are stories in winter. Yet even now, there are signs. A shift in the wind, a drip from the eaves. a patch of moss newly green. The medieval farmer does not divide time into clean lines. Season by season, he measures life, not in possessions, not in leisure, but in what he can coax from the land. And when he rests, he knows, the seasons never truly stop. They only pause, then begin again. Not every day in the life of a medieval farmer is marked by motion. Even in years when the harvest is good, in the deep of winter, when the ground is too hard to till and nothing fresh remains, the farmer turns to the stores. Bread grows denser, made with less flour and more husk. Children feel the shift first. Less food in the morning, no midday treat. They do not always understand, but they notice. By February, even strong households feel the squeeze. The larder grows quiet. The hens lay fewer eggs. Still, life continues. In some homes, dried herbs from the autumn garden bring a trace of flavor to stews. A bit of garlic, a pinch of thyme. Illness is more common now, not because it spreads more easily, but because the body is tired. Cold, hunger, and dampness weigh heavy. The strongest survive these months by leaning on what little they have and on each other. It is not a matter of bravery nor stoicism. And yet, beneath the hardship, there is a quiet kind of resilience. On some mornings, when the sky begins to soften and the wind shifts just slightly, the farmer steps outside and notices something. The sound of dripping. Soon, the first nettles will push through the thawed ground sharp, green, edible. The hunger doesn't end in a single meal. And so the farmer sharpens his blade, quietly. Step across the threshold of a medieval farmhouse, and the world shifts. Outside, the land stretches wide and exposed wet in spring, hard in winter, always asking for labor. But inside, everything narrows. The light dims. The air thickens with the scent of wood smoke, damp straw, and earth. The home is not large. Most are one room, perhaps two, if the family is fortunate. The walls are made from wattle and daub-woven sticks, pressed with a mixture of clay, straw, and dung. When dry, the surface hardens, holding heat and repelling the wind, though it cracks with age and weather. The roof is thatched bundles of dried reeds, layered thickly and tied with care. It softens the rain to a muffled patter. Warmth is shared beneath woolen blankets and old furs. Privacy, as we think of it, does not exist. There are no separate rooms, no locked doors, only space and a quiet understanding of how to use it. Couples argue and reconcile. Elders sit in the corner, mending clothes or murmuring old songs. In summer, it keeps out heat. These are the household's treasures, small as they may be. In the morning, light seeps in slowly. In the evening, it vanishes quickly, replaced by firelight and shadow. Every item has its place, not because the family is orderly, but because there is no room for excess. It is not designed for comfort, but it is, for its people, enough. A place to retreat, to rest, to rise again in the morning and begin anew. The smoke from the hearth rises freely, curling around the rafters. The creak of beams in the wind, the distant bark of a dog. But inside, there is stillness, a hush that settles with the dark. The day's labor ends here, in this low room of smoke and warmth and breath, escaping slowly through a hole in the roof, or through unsealed edges of the walls. This means that everything, the walls, the clothing, even the sleeping straw, carries the faint, lingering smell of fire. Not unpleasant, just present. In winter, it traps what little warmth can be made, but it must be maintained. Thatch, if neglected, invites birds and insects, always at the center. It provides light, warmth, and the means to cook. Straw is scattered across it to absorb moisture and soften each step. It must be changed regularly, or it turns sour. In colder months, animals might be brought indoors perhaps a young goat, especially if predators or frost threaten their survival. They find a corner. They settle in. Over it hangs a blackened pot, suspended from an iron hook or tripod. It is not for dining as we know it, but for preparing food, mending tools, or sorting grain. Benches line its sides. No chairs with backs, no linen cloths. Just wood, worn smooth from daily use. Meals are simple. Pottage made of grains, beans, and whatever herbs are available. Sometimes onions, sometimes cabbage. Occasionally, a bit of salted meat. It sheds bits into the room below. There is no chimney. The hearth sits at the center. The floor is packed earth, smoothed by years of foot traffic. Against one wall rests a rough table, often made by hand. The beds are simple platforms or piles of straw and cloth, pushed to the edges of the room. Families sleep close together. Above, in the loft or along crossbeams, bundles hang, dried herbs, braids of garlic, leather straps, spare tools. Windows, if they exist, are few and small, sometimes covered with oiled cloth, sometimes open to the elements. Despite the simplicity, or perhaps because of it, this space holds more than function. It holds memory. Children take their first steps on this floor. At night, when all is quiet, the sounds of the outside world drift in. The lowing of cattle, the medieval fair mouse, is not grand. In a world where nearly everything must be done by hand, tools are not just objects, they are extensions of the farmer's will. Each one has been shaped over time, passed down, mended, adapted. They are few in number, but each serves a purpose. There is no space for waste. A small, curved blade, sharpened by stone, used to cut grasses, herbs, and grains. Wrapped in cloth if they're small or precious. A wooden rake, its teeth uneven from repairs. A mallet made from a tree root. A basket, woven from willow, used for collecting eggs or herbs. Each one, however simple, carries the weight of repeated use. Without it, there is neither light nor heat. An axe is prized, its edge kept keen, its handle often replaced. In the field, its movement is swift and practiced arc after arc, as stalks fall into neat bundles. Shoes, if worn, are patched with scraps of leather. When they fail, feet meet the dirt again. Nothing is too small to matter. And yet, these are not signs of poverty, exactly. They are signs of a life lived with few possessions and great care. What can be relied upon? For larger tasks, like cutting hay, the scythe is used. It requires strength and rhythm, swinging in wide, deliberate motions. A well-kept blade hums through tall grass. A dull one pulls and stutters. A particularly sturdy cart. A better plow, these may travel from farm to farm, traded for labor or small favors. In this way, the tools form a quiet web of connection, linking households across fields and generations. Worn rope, but in skilled hands, they hold a kind of dignity, a quiet power. They turn the soil. They shape the harvest. They keep the hearth warm. The plow is perhaps the most important. Often made of wood, with an iron-tipped blade if the family can afford it. Pulled slowly by oxen or sometimes a strong mule, it slices open the earth, leaving furrows ready for seed. Its use is rhythmic and physical. The farmer walks behind, steadying its path, listening to the creak of harness and the soft churn of soil. For lighter work, there's the hoe. Its handle is long and rough in the hand, smoothed in spots by years of use. There is no level, no ruler beyond what the hand remembers. Tasks are done by eye and feel, passed down through demonstration, not diagrams. With it, the farmer breaks up clumps of dirt, clears weeds, and digs narrow trenches for root crops. It's not glamorous, but it is constant. Its steady scraping sound becomes familiar, even soothing in repetition. Without a sharp blade, work takes twice the time, and the risk of injury grows. The stone is kept dry, often near the hearth, where the fire's warmth keeps it from cracking. On long evenings, the farmer sits quietly, drawing edge against stone in slow, deliberate strokes. The sickle is another essential. Most tools are stored simply hung on pegs, leaned in corners. Sharpening stones are essential. But there are many things the farmer does not have. No metal nails unless salvaged, no screws, no glass panes, no precise measuring tools. For light, there is tallow a thick, animal fat candle, smoky and short-lived. Oil lamps are rare in rural homes. Firewood must be gathered and chopped. Clothing is mended with bone needles and coarse thread. There is ingenuity in this scarcity. A broken pot becomes a grain scoop. A splintered stool becomes firewood. Nothing is wasted. Tools are shared among neighbors when possible. The medieval farmer does not need abundance. He needs only what works and what lasts, what can be made again if broken. These tools may not look like much rough wood, simple iron, and when the day ends, each one is set down in its place, ready to be used again with the coming light. Even the earth beneath a medieval farmer's feet often does not truly belong to him. Though he tills it, sows it, and gathers what it grows, the land is not his to claim. The farmer, known as a villein or serf, is granted the right to live and work on a small parcel of land. In return, he owes service. Not always in coin, though that may come. More often, in labor and in kind. Sometimes a hen, sometimes eggs, or a bushel of barley. These offerings are taken with quiet formality. They are not seen as theft nor generosity, but necessity. It belongs to a lord sometimes distant, sometimes close, always present in the structure of life. This arrangement is not one of ownership, but of permission. Each week he must give a portion of his time to the domain, the Lord's own fields. Others live nearby, walk the fields, speak to tenants by name. When disputes arise, it is the manor court that hears them. Justice is not always fair, nor swift, but it is structured, predictable in its own way. Their presence is both a burden and a kind of shelter. In exchange for work and goods, the farmer receives protection, however abstract that may feel. But they are familiar, passed down like family stories, repeated across seasons. These lie separate from his own, but require just as much tending. There, he plows, harvests, and repairs, not for his family's survival, but to meet his obligation. It is understood. It is not questioned. A village priest may be poor, like his flock, but the church itself holds wealth. It expects tithes 1/10 of all produce. Tasks flow one into the next, weeding, repairing fences, tending animals. The sound of tools, hoes scraping earth. The barley turns golden beneath the sun's steady gaze. Gardens flourish with herbs and vegetables, their colors muted but comforting greens of kale and parsley, pale roots resting just beneath the surface. The sickle flashes in the sun, cutting grain close to the ground. Stalks are gathered into bundles, bound tightly and stacked in stooks to dry. The air carries the soft crackle of drying straw, and the scent of ripeness, thick and sweet. The low murmur of oxen, the occasional crow of a rooster fills the air, mingling with the smell of fresh grass and tilled earth. Each season follows the last, like notes in a gentle song, a steady turning, measured and unhurried, carrying the promise of renewal. The long days and short nights remind us, softly, that even in toil there is rest, and in endings, a new beginning. The farmer's life is woven into this pattern, shaped by the earth's own pulse. The payment is rarely questioned. To neglect it invites more than earthly consequence. Even using the Lord's mill to grind grain comes at a cost. The farmer watches the sky for rain, praying it comes steady and not in violent bursts. Drought dries the soil, leaving cracks like faint scars. Too much rain turns fields into mud, trapping feet and wheels, making work slow and heavy. The miller keeps a share, and that, too, is owed. Tools are cleaned and sharpened. Animals are fed more carefully, their coats thickening against coming cold. Wood is chopped and stacked near the home, ready to fuel the hearth. In autumn, when the grain is gathered, a share must be handed over. Tithes to the church, rents to the manor. Grain is threshed, separated from chaff, in a slow, repetitive dance. The kernels are stored in sacks or bins, the promise of future bread. The duties vary by region and by lord, but the weight is constant. It shapes the rhythm of the year. A quiet cycle, steady and unrelenting, stretching across the year like a slow-moving tide. The farmer rests too, as much as work allows. Fires burn low, stories are shared, and meals become more sparse and simple. It is a time to gather strength, to wait for the cycle to begin again. The soil, still heavy with moisture, softens beneath careful hands. The farmer moves slowly at first, sensing the right moment to break ground. This is a time of patience, watching for signs. The first sprout of green, the song of returning birds, the softening of the frost. It begins again each spring and ends in the deep chill of winter, only to start anew. Seed is sown with care, scattered by hand or dropped into the shallow trenches. Barley, wheat, oats grains that will sustain the family through the coming months. Each grain carries hope, small and fragile. If the Lord calls for extra work, a new fence, a bridge mended, ditches cleared, there is little choice but to comply. Refusal brings fines. Repeated resistance may lead to removal, or worse, some obligations are written. Many are not. Custom carries the same force as law. A farmer may not recall where the rule began, only that his father followed it, and his father before him. These expectations are passed down like tools, worn smooth by time. There are also fees, small charges that accumulate across the years. A payment when a daughter marries, another when a son inherits. This system is called feudal, though the word itself is rarely spoken in the village. To the farmer, it is simply the way things are. Hierarchy etched into the soil. But the Lord is not always cruel. Some are indifferent, distant figures seen only during inspections or festivals. When raiders come, or lawless men, it is the Lord's retinue that rides out. Even the church plays a part in this web of obligation. And so, the farmer lives within these layers of duty, not crushed by them, but shaped. His choices are narrow, his obligations many. He does not dream of breaking free. He dreams of a steady harvest, of keeping what little he can, of passing it on to his children. The burden is not loud, it does not shout. It simply settles like dust, like frost, like time. Quiet, heavy, and always there. The rhythm of a medieval farmer's life is tied closely to the turning of the seasons. In early spring, the earth wakes from its slumber. With the plow, the land is opened gently. Furrows lie like lines drawn in quiet intention. As the days grow longer, there is work in the fields and the barns. The sun rises early, and the farmer rises with it. Summer brings warmth and the promise of abundance. Crops swell with moisture. But summer's warmth is also a test. By late summer, the harvest draws near. It is a time of urgency and careful calculation. The work is long and tiring, but also filled with quiet satisfaction. The fruits of months of care finally come together. Autumn cools the air and softens the light. The days shorten, shadows grow longer, and the farmer turns attention to preparation. Winter's arrival is marked by stillness. The land rests under frost and snow. Through this slow passage of months, there is a quiet continuity. And though the work is hard and the demands many, the rhythm offers a kind of comfort. As we come to the close of this journey, through the life of a medieval farmer, it becomes clear that existence in that time was woven tightly with the land, the seasons, and the unseen hands of tradition and obligation. It was shaped by tools worn smooth, by duties owed not only to family, but to lords and church. It was defined by the shelter of humble walls, and the ever-present rhythm of nature, its quiet demands. The hardships were many, often unseen beneath layers of routine, and the comforts few. Yet in these spaces, life moved with a patient dignity. Each day began not with choice, but with necessity. Each task was part of a slow, steady cycle, an endless weaving of work and rest, hope and endurance. The world of the medieval farmer was one of simplicity, yet complexity. To imagine living a day as they did is to feel the weight of unyielding labor, balanced by small moments of respite. The crackle of firelight in a smoky room, the soft rustle of grain in the breeze, the steady breathing of those gathered close in cold nights. It is a life stripped to its essentials, where survival and community meet in quiet harmony. You, in the calm of your own world, might see how fragile and precious that life was, how every moment required attention, care, and strength, how the farmer's day was long, but also full of purpose and presence. So, as you drift toward rest, carry with you this gentle understanding. The medieval farmer's world, distant yet quietly resonant, reminds us that life's rhythms, work, waiting, renewal, are timeless. And within those rhythms, there is a kind of peace, waiting patiently to be found. May this reflection ease your mind and guide you softly toward sleep.